Everyone. I'm so excited to be here with Poets in Pajamas. My name is Bo Schwabacher, and I'll be the poet reading tonight. I just wanted to allow people to come on in, so I have a little bit of information about me. Right now, I'm a bit of a homebody, and I love The Handmaid's Tale. I'm completely engrossed in the current series. And a few things that inspire me are really compassionate, powerful women and artists like Margaret Atwood. I was also thinking today about other women who inspire me, and I thought about my friends in Flagstaff and the women who I've met who really champion women's rights, like my friend Susan in Flagstaff and Laura Gray Rosendale. They do amazing work with women, and being in their presence, I always felt like they truly wanted me to be healthy, to be free, and to be happy, and just being in their presence was so empowering. I was also thinking about public figures who inspire me, and Christine Blasey Ford came to mind, and also other writers. So I recently read The Carrying by Ada Limon, and I loved her book, this one. Specifically just really moved me, and I wanted to read a poem from The Carrying that inspired me. This is called Love Poem with Apologies for My Appearance. Sometimes I think you get the worst of me. The much-loved loose forest green sweatpants, the long braless days, hair knotted and uncivilized, a shadowed brow where the devilish thoughts do their hooved dance on the brain. I'd like to say this means I love you, the stained white cotton t-shirt, the tears, pistachio shells, the mess of orange peels on my desk, but it's different than that. I move in this house with you the way I move in my mind. Unencumbered by beauty's cage, I do like I do in the tall grass, more animal me than much else. I'm wrong, it is that I love you, but it's more that when you say it back, lights out, a cold wind through curtains, for maybe the first time in my life, I believe it. I would just carry this book around with me and read it wherever I was. I'd read it in the car. Just inspires me. And then I recently moved from Flagstaff to Austin, and there's a group of women who I love to meet up with, and we go to the public library and independent bookstores. And we recently went to a bookstore called Black Pearl Books in Austin, and I found this book, which is what I'm currently reading, Breasts and Eggs. And the first opening paragraph really caught me. 1. Are you poor? If you want to know how poor somebody was growing up, ask them how many windows they had. Don't ask what was in their fridge or in their closet. The number of windows says it all. It says everything. If they had none, or maybe one or two, that's all you need to know. So those are some things that are inspiring me right now. If you're just coming in, I'm Bo Schwabacher. I recently released my debut book of poetry with Tinderbox Editions. It's called Omma, Sea of Joy, and Other Astrological Signs. And I'm a South Korean adoptee. I was born in Korea and then adopted when I was 3 months old and raised in Illinois. My book centers a lot around my heritage and then also my longing and aching to connect with my Omma, which means mother in Korean. And I'm so thrilled today to be a part of this event. I wanted to do a shout out to S.J. Stout and Shannon Wolf with Poets in Pajamas, and then also everybody at Sundress Publications. I'm a huge fan, and I'm really honored to be here today. My poetry has appeared in different publications like Zone 3, Tupelo Quarterly, Cha, and I'm really looking forward to sharing more of my work with all of you today. So I'm going to go ahead and begin reading from my book. I'm going to start with a poem called Luck of the Rabbit and Blood Type AB. Luck of the Rabbit and Blood Type AB. My family consisted of a dragon, a tiger, and a rat. I was a rabbit from Korea with AB positive blood, which means when I found a baby rabbit near the childhood fence, I thought my mother would save it. The dragon and the tiger were constantly fighting while the rat self-destructed in very clever ways. I was soft as a bun in a hot metal tin, wheeled to the next table for the next hungry family. I grew up in Illinois, and my adoptive family used to take a trip to the beach, and we would go to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. This poem is called The Outer Banks, Last Family Road Trip. I slept in a bathtub in a Motel 6. I slept at the Virginia diner over biscuits and gravy. I slept through the Smoky Mountains, my father recalling his red college hallucinations like a somniloquy. My parents drove in separate cars. They said aloud this vacation was for their children, as if children enjoy being around drunk, collapsing adults who tally what each person owes for groceries and rum. My brother nodded to the reasoning of wrecked fools, even though he was better at algebra. I hoped that fluorescence was just an invention meant to make workers believe it is daylight, to forget that they can walk outside at any time with coffee styrofoam vision and be honest goodness across continental airwaves, even to their children. Caramel, foam, tenderness, they can say, I'm broken. We're broken. How did you sleep? My next poem I originally titled On Becoming a Second Wife, and I decided to change that title because the speaker in this poem is put into a situation where she doesn't have the rights of a second wife, and she's not truly seen for who she is. Her heritage isn't being recognized in this poem, and she's put into a very disempowering and limited role. So the poem was changed from On Becoming a Second Wife to On Becoming a Geisha Girl, not a second wife. My father needed a new mattress for himself after my mother left. My father asked me what type I liked and made me sit on top of one in the store. I don't know why I asked you, he said days later. I remember the freckles on his back and the bag of beignets he brought me when I turned legal. We rested in adjacent beds at a New Orleans motel. I like goose feather beds now, and men who listen to me just to know what I'd sound like stoned in a humid, unknown city with absolutely no sense of where I'd like to sleep. This next poem is called An Adopted Korean Girl's Remedy for the Asian Woman Fetish. This poem is about how exposing a fetish makes it unappealing and unattractive. So that's the remedy, exposure. An adopted Korean girl's remedy for the Asian woman fetish. Like I saw a white woman's body is the salt, on sleeping by my mother remembering. Pancakes with blueberries, plantains and shrimp, fish roe, maize. My father fed me and then at the airport asked for a kiss. How to love an adopted Korean girl. Take pictures of her in the dark when the moon is almost full, on the verge of an eclipse. Ask her if she sees the rabbit. Show her there are two ways of looking at almost everything. She will find her way home by eating pumpkin porridge. She will realize her roots by remembering she came to America on tiny boat shoes. Her mother is beautiful, you know, because she was born from the same heartbeat, an intelligence reserved for the soft-spoken. Bring tangerines and light citrus spritz on fire to get a better look at her eyes. She will smell like forgetfulness and dank oil. The neck is a cradle. She will love you if you stay, if you promise you have never left. Part of my journey as a South Korean adoptee has been allowing myself to feel real emotions about my adoption and also my aching and my longing for my birth mother. I wrote this poem called Potbelly. I was reading Sharon Olds at that time, and I was thinking about, as a woman, this part of my body that has always felt like a potbelly, and how it reminds me of my Omma and the feeling that she may have had when she gave me up for adoption, that feeling that a potbelly reminded her of the time we were together. And it reminds me of the time we were together. Potbelly. Where I carry my weight, occupying a table for two in a crowded cafe because I prefer space, the skin/underbelly of my mother, this obsessive need for hair touching, neck brushing, eggs Benedict, steam under winter oak yoke. You asked me for a pair of goats, their miraculous hooves. I asked you not to travel on my birthday. It reminds me of leaving the soft place of my birth, first breath taken. Mugunghwa is the national flower in South Korea, and when I wrote this poem, I was beginning to search for my birth mother. I had looked into my records and found my adoption records, and I had started the search for her. I had this wild hope that I would be able to meet her, and around that time I also was planning to go back to South Korea, visit my birth village, and volunteered in an orphanage near where I was born. So this poem is about my hope to meet my Omma, my birth mother. Mugunghwa. I meet my birth mother in August when Mugunghwa blossoms. This is what I hope for, at least. The flower withstands rust and smuts. It is the end of August now, and I am waiting. Will she want to meet me? Is she alive? Maybe it would be more auspicious to meet in October, the end of the season, 2 months after she had given birth. She gave me to a taxi driver and his family for safekeeping, placed like a poem looking for an audience, a reader to say, I see you. And I will hold you between my fingers like a delicate pulpwood treasure. Around that time, I was also reading about Korea and trying to learn about the culture through learning more about the language. So I was learning about expressions in the Korean culture, and I came across this phrase, classic beauty in Korea is like a pearl rolling along a jade dish. This poem is called An Adopted Korean Girl Imagines Her Birth Mother at a Seoul Fish Market. A pearl rolling along a jade dish, I took it from classic beauty in Korea. I heard you can't see the stars in Seoul. Can you see the stars in Seoul? This body digests everything. Your voice is somewhere in the fish market where rare creatures are pickled and salted and stolen. This poem is called An Adopted Korean Girl's Soberness. The first line is 100% Asia East, which I took from my beginning of searching for my DNA and doing DNA testing and seeing if I would have any matches. An Adopted Korean Girl's Soberness. 100% Asia East, I bled and worried. I slept in the fetal position and learned how to eat a bony fish, how to chase love. A bruised moon is yellowed tinfoil. I was left with men like my father and a fistful of corn pops. What could I do but bleed? An Adopted Korean Girl's Tea Ceremony. Pouring tea for white men with bad teeth and bald spots, I want you to like me. My wrists turn upwards like leaves before rain. Come, there is weak oiled light and spring rice you call flesh. Before I left for my trip to Korea, it was in 2016, I had made plans and I was getting ready to go first to Seoul, and I was going to visit Holt, Korea, the adoption agency, and then go to the orphanage and volunteer, and then go to my birth village and look for my birth mother. But I got a phone call and learned that my birth mother was dead, and she died before she was 30. So I still embarked on that trip, but it was knowing that I wouldn't meet her physically, and I wouldn't be able to hold her hand, or I wouldn't be able to see her face or hear her voice. And I just tried to connect with her as much as I could. I went to the maternity clinic where she gave birth to me, and I imagined her life there. I know she was there. I know she physically was walking along that street. So I imagined what it was like to be her and what it was like to be together. So there was this one New Year's in Flagstaff where I did something totally different that I had never done on a New Year's Day. I went to this beautiful spot in nature where I had pine trees and aspen trees, and there was freshly fallen snow. And I thought of what a new beginning this day was, and I took the pine needles from that area and I used them so that I could make these sweet rice cakes that I liked when I was little, and steam them over a bed of pine needles. And they tasted okay, but the shape wasn't the perfect half moon shape. And that image came into this poem. And also, part of my experience as an adoptee is I wasn't able to connect with the language when I was growing up. So I really long to speak Korean well, but I have to practice a lot, and it's something that I'm really a beginner at. So please forgive any mispronunciations. An adopted Korean girl's New Year's wish for her birth mother. What else does an orphan girl have? Whomever I'm with, I please. Brave Omma were outcasts, and Ajuma is selling cigarettes next to the place we were last together. A ghost is blessing my cakes. I'm steaming my misshapen sampyeong over pine needles. This earthy, real grief was our beginning. As an animal, I need to be held. Beauty is a feeling. And this is the last poem I'm going to read today. I wrote this years ago, and I went on that journey to Korea in 2016. Around that time, I found the statistic that less than 3% of adopted Koreans find their mothers. And I have the question now if that has changed, and more Korean adoptees can connect with their Ommas or connect with their families due to technology and also DNA testing. And right now, where I'm at in my search is I would love to go back to my birth village and see if I can connect with my people and also find any living relatives. That's the hope that I have now. Rice cake idioms. The rice cake in the painting is what you want but can't have. Less than 3% of adopted Koreans find their mothers. I am a poor translator. Here is an example of a windy boy. My birth father / your lover, boss, client, or even possibly rapist was married. Your heartbreak is from splitting. It's 3:03 a.m. Seoul, South Korea / 11:03 a.m. Flagstaff, Arizona. Have you ever eaten rice cakes while lying down? Did you have a fruit dream about my gender? Rest easy, mother. I have been overfed. I have been offered seconds. You would love the sticky rice steamed in lotus leaves, the sweet jewels I eat in bed. Thank you so much. So feel free now to enter any questions. I'd love to hear questions from you and to connect more with you. So I'm looking forward to hearing those questions that you have. And then just a little bit more about my work. This book was really about understanding my longing for my Omma and what it means to not be a persona, to not be an adopted Korean girl, or even in a limited, someone with a limited perspective of my heritage, a geisha girl, or a sexualized object in relationship to the Asian fetish. This was a discovery process, writing this book, of what my real emotions and feelings were, and what it means to be a real person and a real woman and still have my identity be linked to being an adoptee and to being an Asian woman. This book really helped me to connect with how important my Omma is to me, and how much of my longing for other things were actually substitutes for the love and the connection that I wish to have with my Omma. A goal for my work is that while I was writing this, each poem was a step towards being real to myself, and also trying to access healing and a sense of personal freedom. Freedom through voice, freedom through feeling real emotions, freedom through exploring difficult memories and questions that I've had. And I also wrote this book while I was going through the process of looking for my Omma and being in Korea, seeing the orphanage and the system that I've been a part of too as an adoptee. So that's part of my writing process and the energy driving my writing process while writing the book. But now that it's been released, something amazing is just the connection that I feel, not only within myself, but also with other people, other Korean adoptees, other women, writers. It's really been a gift of this book, is feeling a sense of connection. And something else that I have as a goal for my work is I hope that people who read this book feel that sense of aliveness in themselves and that sense of freedom. I would love for adoptees to connect with my book, also girls and women, and anyone who wants to heal from trauma and intergenerational trauma. I hope that my book is a force of healing. My process for writing this book it took about 10 years. I feel like it took me many years to have some of the insights, and some of the poems went through many forms. I wrote sometimes 50 to 100 drafts of the same poem. So my writing process, it often includes images from my real experiences that I'm having on a day-to-day basis, and then also sometimes conversations I've had or letters that I've been writing and sharing with people I love, and also sometimes dreams influence my writing process and my poems, and music, and sometimes a word catches my ear, and sometimes I just have a feeling. There's a feeling that I get, and it's the feeling is the charge that turns into a poem. So I see a question. Thank you so much for sharing your questions. How do you approach the blank page with the intent to write? What gets you creating? I think that what gets me creating from the white page, sometimes it just starts with a hope that something's going to come when I'm looking at that white page. And it's just this steady hope that carries me through the days. But I would say that other things are, like, what's coming to mind is it was so hot in Austin, and I was starting to wake up really early and go to this naturally fed pool that they have here that's filled with spring water, but it's a pool. And so I started swimming there briefly in the mornings, and I was really taken by the birds. And so I started to think about a cool green rhythm, and also one of my friends was talking about a cool green rhythm, and then I started thinking about the different kinds of birds, and then I had an interest in the birds that are a part of Texas and Austin. So a lot of times it just starts with like a sensation or an emotion or an image or a word or something exquisite that someone has said that captivates me, and then I go through usually many drafts until I get to a final poem. But there's something pulling me into that poem that gets me started. Just making sure I see the questions. This is such a wonderful question. I was curious if you've pursued or investigated traditional or contemporary Korean poetry through your healing and time in Korea and found any parallels in your own work. Thank you for such a thoughtful question. I did start to look into Korean women's poetry and Korean women writers' works. But I feel like I just touched the surface, and I read more of looking for what kind of emotions the works arose in me and evoked in me. And I remember when I got started, some of the poetry I was reading evoked a sense of deep sadness. It just reminded me of women not being allowed to have feelings and having to fit certain kinds of roles. And it made me think about my birth mother, who was young in the 1980s, and the sadness she must have carried, not just because she gave up her firstborn baby, but because of all the limitations placed on her and placed on women. So that's been the beginning of my curiosity, but your question makes me want to revisit Korean women's writing and poetry, and I have a real interest right now in history, especially during the time my mother lived in. So thank you for such a beautiful question. Yes, Molly. The springs are right by Zilker Park. Uh, Well, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your questions again. And I really could feel, even though we're through Facebook and online, I really felt a connection with you. So thank you again, SJ, for having me, and Poets in Pajamas and Sundress. It's really been just such a great honor, and thank you, Shannon Wolf. It's been so wonderful to be here with everyone, and I wish you all well. Feel free to reach out to me. I listed my website, and you can contact me there, and also Instagram. So feel free to stay in touch, and I wish you all well. Thank you again. Bye.